Probably the most significant staff engagement policy that your company will implement in 2020 is around how you support your staff with school-going children. You see, it's becoming clear now that we are not going to get our kids back to school in any way that we consider normal during this current year. Some schools are going to phase back certain years and grades back into the school, but even those children that go back to school during that phased-in period are probably not going to go back for full lessons and for full days. In other words, parents are going to have to continue with corona schooling. Yes, it's a bit of a cheesy label, but we can't call it homeschooling, because homeschooling is when you have an entire setup and you're all geared towards taking your kids through school. I don't want to call it crisis schooling either, because we can't sustain a crisis mindset for months on end. But for most of 2020, and I would suggest 2021 as well, parents are going to have to be significantly more involved in the schooling of their children, and the disruption of having children at home is going to continue. This will impact your staff. Some of your staff actually won't be able to come to work. Some of your staff will struggle to come to work in the hours that they normally would. And some of your staff, even if they can come to work, are obviously going to be more mentally and physically and emotionally stressed out because of the situation with their children. You as an employer cannot just keep pushing your staff to give you more productivity and more efficiency. As an employer, you cannot simply ignore the new life reality of your staff. I say you can't. Of course you can. You can just ignore it, tell them to get on with it, threaten them with their jobs, tell them that it's a rough job market, and if they don't produce, they're going to be retrenched and fired. You could do all of that, and maybe it will work in the short term. Maybe some of your staff will just suck it up and move on. But the soonest opportunity they have after this crisis is over to leave you behind, they will. If you're prepared to do that, if you're prepared to be one of those awful employers, well, I suppose that's your choice, but I guess you wouldn't be looking at much of the stuff that I do anyway. So for those of you who are prepared to think about the people in your team, think about the humanity of the human resources that you have, this is going to be one of your biggest challenges. You need to help the individuals, the staff members that you have. You need to engage with the team dynamics. You need to think about just how you put pressure on your teams, what time you start, how much flexibility you give people during the day, whether you abandon hours, office hours totally, which would be my suggestion. You might have to have different policies and processes. It really just depends on your organization and how you're set up. But you honestly need to think this one through, because parents of school-going kids are going to be especially stressed. A final thought is that we might want to help our parents to think through the situation and support them in getting community support. I really think that communities, suburbs, townships, and groups of people together could really work well together during this crisis. A tennis club, a bowls club, a church, a mosque, a synagogue. These places are probably not going to be used much over the next few months, or certainly not used as much as they would be. Those are big empty spaces in your local community. If your kids can't go to school, maybe there are people in the community, maybe people who can work from home, maybe people who are unemployed, maybe older people who are able to go into those spaces and do some supervision with children. And so maybe the community can get together and help those parents who do need to go to work by making sure that their children are well looked after if they can't go to school. You as an employer could make these suggestions to your staff and support them in setting up these structures. It may be that for the next few weeks and months, you're a little bit more disrupted, a little bit less efficient and productive as you help your staff to build a foundation that they can then work hard on top of. This is going to be your biggest HR and staff retention and staff engagement challenge of 2020. Don't mess it up. Make sure that you focus on the humanity of the human resources in your business. If our team at Tomorrow Today Global can help you and your team to think through these humanity, human resource, leadership and team issues, please make sure that you contact us. This is what we do. We help people think about the future, engage with disruption, and put in place policies that get the best out of people.